So, hello everyone. My name is Jessica Hayes, and I am an active classroom certified trainer. I'm very excited to be with you all here this afternoon. It's afternoon for me. So, welcome to our webinar today on Celebrate Inclusive Holidays to Foster Respect for Diverse Cultures. We are glad to have you all here with us again. Our presenter is Melissa Knowles. Melissa, she has been working in education for 17 years, and she is currently a media specialist. In her work as a certified trainer for social studies school service, she builds curriculum maps, she develops micro credentials, and trains educators on using the programs, as well as leads and hosts webinars on various topics. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Melissa and get tonight's webinar started.
Awesome. Thank you, Jessica. I am so excited to be here with you tonight. I happen to love holidays, and so I was excited when I got the opportunity to talk with you guys today about making your holidays inclusive and respecting all of the varied cultures in our classroom. And I have to admit, teaching diverse holidays has not been something that I have always done. I've gone to those main holidays and I probably have done a very stereotypical job of celebrating them with my students. But now, as I look at the diversity of students in my classroom, even coming from the same cultures, how different they are. It does make me wonder who I have neglected in the past. The one thing that I do have is I've always embraced a lot of literature as a media specialist now. I have always read with my students. And so I'm hoping that I did not leave out a lot of cultures because we have read so many different books about so many different cultures and groups of people in my classroom. The Cinderella stories from around the world has always been one of my favorite units that we've done. So, something you may or may not know, but when you celebrate diversity in your classroom through holidays or any other time in the year, it actually affects student success. So, diverse classrooms promote creativity, high level thinking skills, collaboration. They're also comparing and contrasting with themselves and seeing how it fits in their world, all these new concepts and ideas. So let's get started here. Oh, it's coming. All right. Celebrating holidays are such rich opportunities for students educationally. They can read, research, question, compare, contrast, and experience so many other cultures around our world. History, social studies, you can do math with it. You really can hit every subject using holiday celebrations. So they are definitely a very important time of engaging your students. But they also need to be inclusive and respectful of cultures. So I thought I would pose a quick question, and I know it's taken a minute to pop up for me. Just in the chat box, if you will, what challenges are you currently finding in diversifying classroom holidays? And maybe you just haven't really even thought about it as much before until maybe recently. So if you will just add those into the chat, that will be awesome. And Jessica can let me know what you're adding in there because I can't see the chat with all the other things on my screen right now. Trying to use two screens, but it's not quite working so well.
So, a few comments coming in: community pushback from parents and others. One person says that her area is not diverse at all. They have very little resources. Available resources such as picture books, projects, videos, etc. That was from a different different participant. Also, that there are so many holidays. How do you choose ones to celebrate? One person said currently found no challenges. Try to be inclusive.
Awesome.
Someone else said they agreed with the pushback.
Wow. So pushback in not celebrating other cultures or in being more inclusive and celebrating more in other cultures. I'm wondering um, on that what the issue is there. Because it's interesting. I mean, I could see both in different classrooms and different parents that I've had. I could see both sides um, being an issue. Those are great. Really good. What do you choose? There are so many. We're going to look at a couple calendars in a minute. Those are great questions, and hopefully we will answer a lot of those throughout. And then at the end, I would love to have sort of. I know this webinar was projected as a sort of panel discussion, so I would love to talk with you and see what you're thinking after the presentation is over.
We
So,
do have some more comments.
oh yeah, awesome. Yeah, go ahead.
Wanting to celebrate all holidays rather than just focusing on December. So, how do we highlight these and incorporate them throughout the entire year? The fear of not including everyone, being more inclusive. One person says that we have become such a fear based society and so fearful about offending somebody. Um, Ashley says that she usually asks at the beginning of the year if there are any holidays that they do not participate. And this is her first year that she has a student that does not celebrate due to religion. So we focus on seasons and not holidays.
Good, good. Yes. Those are great. It's a lot to think about, especially in our society. I think more recently,
Mm-hmm.
with including our students and not leaving anyone out, but also not offending them by even doing some culturally maybe stereotypical things that we typically do. So it is definitely a lot to think about. So today I want to start with what should we consider when we're developing culturally inclusive holidays. I've got several suggested activities for planning some celebrations, including non-typical holiday celebrations. Because we know that our classes do vary. So one year you may have a group that's really open to it, and the next year you may have a lot of pushback and not a lot of support from your admin. And then, of course, I want to share out and just talk amongst ourselves on what we're thinking. I've got a few questions planned for that. So this particular picture that's about to pop up on your screen is a time where it was really hard for me because it was last year. And I had a TP in my library that was so much fun, and the kids loved reading in it. And we did basically a pioneer day. Of course, we had a lot of students who were wearing headdresses, which is, as I've read, inappropriate for a Native American culture. So, but it's something that my school celebrates and participates in every year. So I chose to do it as culturally appropriate as I could. But I think you need to start with considering your students and who they are. So who's in your classroom, what cultures, who celebrates what holidays. Even if you have students from the same culture, they may not celebrate the holiday in the same way, or they may not celebrate it at all. Um, Also, students are great resources. So we always want them to share their experiences and their family experiences, but we definitely need to remember to add in other research and things that we have done, because students celebrate vastly differently, and they should not be considered an expert on that particular cultural holiday. They are an expert in how their family chooses to celebrate it. But it's important to include them, absolutely, but not make that the entire the only resource that you use about that holiday, if it's something you choose to bring in. Another thing to think about is to make sure that you treat all, if you choose to celebrate different holidays, treat them all the same. Don't make a big, huge deal about one and then not of others. It can tend to really make a holiday seem maybe not as important, or make it seem, oh, that's something that they do in other countries. That's not something we do here. And these are about holidays and people and cultures that we're celebrating that are in America, in our melting pot. So the first thing is consider your students. So I wanted to show you some ideas on how we can learn about each other. I love this identity collage. We heard the participant that said that she talks to her students and families on what they celebrate and what they don't. So one way to find out more about your students is to ask them questions and have them maybe make an art project about it. And you can use so many different things for this identity collage. Also, so many different age groups. I think this is just a great way to get to know your kids. Um, and it really looks kind of cool, I think. 10 questions. So we've all done those icebreakers where you go around the room and you find other people that have been to a foreign country or have done certain things. Well, you can do the same thing with your classroom. You can even have your students generate questions, and you can include questions about holidays and celebrations, where their families are from, and things like that, in just questioning your students. There's also a fun game called a line game where you can ask questions. So you could say something like, who has a family that lives in another country? And they go and they stand on the line if they fit that description. You can have students ask questions so you can participate with them, and you just really get to know and learn a lot about each other with a game like this. But also, it's very low risk. You are seeing how you compare and how you contrast with other students in your classroom. So it's a really good way to not to get to know each other and to accept each other's similarities and differences in your classroom. So our goal is getting to know each other to reduce that fear, increase empathy, and break down stereotypes. So these are just a few ways that I thought are good ways to use in your classroom with any age group. So we also need to be careful and consider stereotypes and assumptions. We don't want to reinforce stereotypes in our classroom. And sometimes when we focus on only certain parts of a holiday, like the 3 F's, festivals, fashion, and foods, we really trivialize groups and cultures. We really need to focus on, meanings behind things, day-to-day life, and just really all the, or more, I should say, more parts of the group. And doing that through literature has always been the easiest way for me. So asking questions like, do all Native Americans dress this way? Who in their culture would wear a feathered headdress? What is the meaning of that particular symbol in their culture? So avoiding those stereotypical images, clip art, worksheets, can do a lot to reduce it. So as we research, we find different images that can represent parts of that holiday. So it's not just sombreros like with Cinco de Mayo, or it's not just one thing that represents, oh, that means Christmas. You can really find learn a lot more about it when you put those away, those particular images. So talking to your students first really helps get a jump on the issues, and discussing those issues of like stereotypes and discrimination or cultural appropriation before they come in, just by questioning your students and by learning more about the culture, really can help avoid some of those issues. I'm not sure if it's taking quite as long for you as it is for me to pop up, but there it is. So, some of the ways that I like to reduce those stereotypes and assumptions about cultures is by making it normal in our classroom. Um, say, doing something with Merry Christmas, and we've done this a lot of ways, but Merry Christmas from our class means Merry Christmas in a lot of different languages, or Happy Holidays, or um, whatever the appropriate term would be for your students. But also, I encourage my students from other cultures, especially if they speak other languages, I greatly encourage them to speak them in the class. And I let them know that I want to learn, I want to know more. More times than not, we have students that don't speak English, at least a few in our school. And so getting help from those and making those other students, sometimes it's really hard for them to be willing to speak in their country and their normal home language. But letting them know it's important and it's helpful has been a really good way. I've literally seen a child this year blossom because she could help me speak with a student that came to our school that spoke no English. And she it's been amazing just to see how she has really just become and shown us more of who she is in our classroom now. And we also read about it. There's so many books that can reflect students' experiences, represent diverse authors, and just build our understanding about it and then sharing about it. My goal the past couple years, of course, COVID has changed that this year, but my goal has been to allow my students as many experiences as possible. So this particular student in the Share About It picture is a high school student that was allowed to come to our school for the day and share how she had taught herself how to play the ukulele. She played a favorite song of last year, Baby Shark, and just got those kids wrapped. But she was able to talk about her history. She was able to talk about how she had taught herself and learned something on her own because she was interested in it. And the students really got a lot about that, a lot from those experiences. And we had several other throughout the year, but this one was simple. I just borrowed a high schooler. And I know that a lot of times we've had parents that are willing to come and share and read and sing and bring us food items, which probably now couldn't happen. But there are ways to bring in cultures and make the students feel important, and by making it just something normal in your classroom. So don't take just those holidays at Christmas time, make it a norm in your classroom to include other cultures all the time, and those holidays will come in um, as they fit. I think I got it. Sorry, I'm not, my computer is usually not quite this drugged down. I apologize for that. Oh, there. There. Shoo. Oh, I skipped one. So we're going to go back one more. There we go. Okay, so don't forget gender and sexual orientation during certain holidays. Of course, I'm thinking of like Valentine's Day. Um, but it's very important just to be understanding and not be restrictive and only have one thing that you're representing, because our students are varied and different and they need to be accepted for who and what they are. So just being aware and considerate of those things can be helpful. I know I am constantly debating with students the fact of it, is it a book that for boys or for girls or whatever? And no, and I will show them why it's not, and we will talk about it. And I have to do that so much. But just being aware of that is something important, and also considering religion. I know that we have to be careful with religion, but we should not certainly focus on just one, which is currently happening in my school more than I would like to say. But showing students a lot of different religions and not including just one, making sure that you include what the ways that other students in your classroom, their beliefs is also important during the holidays. So a lot of times we'll do a Christmas around the world type thing, and some of them aren't Christmas related necessarily, or they're not called Christmas, I should say, the holidays, but it really brings in a lot of different traditions and religions and beliefs, and students can get a better grasp on some of the differences in that way when they can see how others celebrate it. So considering religion, also remembering that there are things, as we said, that some people don't celebrate certain holidays and can't participate, and so allowing students the choice and being understanding of that is important also. So now we're going to go beyond the norm. Uh, please don't be as limited as I have been in the past with your holidays. Expand. Try some different things, different observances. Bring in the cultures that your students have, and it doesn't have to be huge. We're going to talk about how to start in just a little bit. But just make it the norm, make it a part of your classroom. That to me is the easiest way to embed and bring it in. And sometimes that's just talking or sharing. Oh, you went to visit your family in this country. And you brought something back, and talking about what that represents for them. It can be just even as simple as that. So I told you I was going to show you some calendars. And there was a couple things in this December and January just to show you the vast differences. So December 3rd, today, International Day of Persons with Disabilities. I love obscure holidays. The 15th, Bill of Rights Day. So that'd be a great day to talk about individual rights. There's also Wounded Knee Day, Kwanzaa, New Year's, and of course some of these, Our Lady of Guadalupe, be an interesting one. And of course, December 10th, Human Rights Day. So maybe you, instead of doing a Christmas or a holiday based on a religion, maybe you could celebrate more as the season of giving, or do something to bring awareness to human injustices or rights injustices, even if it's just things in your school. And then January had one that I really thought was awesome. January 18 to 22, which goes along with Martin Luther King Jr. Day, No Name Calling Week. So I thought that would be a good way to bring in values in Martin Luther King Jr. Day without necessarily calling it a holiday, but just bringing awareness to social issues are another great way. But you have a lot of other ideas here too that are related to religion. So that brings me into connecting your holidays. So, as I said, instead of necessarily making it a holiday celebration, bring in Labor Day. Talk about labor injustices, pay differences, rights. Columbus Day. What about Indigenous history and talk about how their rights and how they were taken away from them during the exploration. All right. Jeez, this can be. And non-holiday holidays. So instead of maybe Valentine's Day, you could have character days, friendship week, kindness week. Instead of holidays, you could celebrate seasons and the diversity in our seasons and how they change. I've seen we've had a tree up in our room in our hallway at school, and the art teacher has added different things to the tree for the season and made it appropriate. And sometimes seasons go along with culture. Um, and of course, use the season of giving rather than a season of a holiday or Christmas. And just those are just some other ideas of things that you can do to support diversity without it being a holiday, which means probably there'd be less students that couldn't participate. So, how could you get started? Well, first, I think this is the year of giving yourself grace with all of our new things that we have not dealt with as teachers. Yet, I don't know if it's the same at your school, but we still have several new programs and things that we're doing this year, even though we already had so much new. So, start by giving yourself grace, but start. Communicate. It could be simply talking to your students and sharing interest in their lives and what things that they celebrate and how their families um, represent their culture to each other through day-to-day things. Also, continue learning and growing, and diversity doesn't have to be this huge event and celebration. It can be reading a book, it can be talking about something that's going on in our world with your students. So bringing all of that in is just an easy way to start. But as you build these things into your curriculum and into your year, they're going to be so much easier to then continue and add to. And who knows what our world will be next year, huh? We don't know. So now I have some questions for you. So you can use a chat box. I don't think our group is too large that we couldn't unmute if you wanted to. Are there holidays that you think should be included to be considered diverse or should not be included? What could you do about culturally diverse school-wide celebrations? This was my issue with our Pioneer Day. It was not culturally diverse, nor was it appropriate in my view for students. How do you currently or plan to support diversity through holiday celebrations? Do you have some great ideas and things that you've come up with now? So, Jessica, could you help me with that?
Yes, we do have a comment. Margaret posted a link to the chat that she found a collection of ways to help build identity linked to literature.
Nice. Awesome.
And
Thank you.
then Anita also said, is there a resource for quality children's literature about different cultures? Because she's looking.
Okay. Um, yes, I usually search, it's usually something specific and it's usually social related. Um, but I know there are websites on the internet, but I cannot tell you one. Teaching Tolerance is good, but I'm not sure if they have just a book list, but that is a good website if you do a Google search for Teaching Tolerance. That one could be added. I would look it up, but my computer for some reason is incredibly bogged down right now, even though nothing is open but Zoom and PowerPoint. Maybe it's my PowerPoint, I don't know. But but yes, there absolutely are. And so many different lists that I saw. So like when I'm always looking for new Cinderella type fairy tale stories, because I bring in the culture and our literature standard. Um, so, and I'm always adding to my list that I have created, but there's so much out there. And I'm sure this list that was posted in the chat box is also sounds like it was appropriate literature. So that'd be a good link to save.
All right. And if you would like to unmute yourself to answer any of these questions, you can. I believe by tapping on the space bar, that would work too if you didn't want to click mute and unmute. Anita posted the Teaching Tolerance website.
Thank you, Anita.
And Carolyn also posted another website, a link.
Nice.
It looks like children's literature in the elementary classroom. So that I think that might be a list.
I think literature is just the absolute easiest way, and with so many read alouds and things on the internet, I know our schools have invested a ton in digital books, which that means we can now share with each other way easier. So looking at libraries around you could be another way to share and to access these resources without having to spend money. So does anyone have any ideas or plans on maybe some ways that they're going to use more diversity in their holidays in upcoming celebrations?
Melissa.
Yeah.
We are, because I teach sixth grade, we are focusing on, obviously the world religions is part of our curriculum here, the major world religions. And so we're trying to tie in a lot of these different holidays that are tied in with the various religions around the world and incorporate that with the different countries that are predominantly that religion. And so we're tying in a lot of different things. We're tying in, country, and we're tying in, practices, and we're tying in, religious beliefs and diversity, and once again, tolerance, acceptance. And so that's just something that's kind of built into our curriculum, but we're just trying to take it a step further.
That is fabulous. I love that. We do a lot of maps on world geography, which would definitely, some of those ideas would be great to use in our curriculum maps. So thank you for sharing that. That's awesome.
So this is Lillian speaking, and I teach the adult transition between 18 and 22. Because of, my students, I use a lot of videos. But usually at the beginning of the month, we go through the whole month and we celebrate everything. So we go, what is being celebrated on the first, second, third. We just have that as part of our schedule for the whole month. So every day we're celebrating something. And also, I used to have a student like about 2 years ago, and he used to come up and he will touch my hair and he'd be like, oh, why is your hair like this? And then every time I wear something, and he would say, oh, that's an African print. Every time I'll do something, and I realized that he probably, I just felt like he didn't have a chance to have a close and a personal relationship with a Black person. And I, being his teacher, I think I was probably the closest person he ever met that was that close, that he could ask questions. He will literally come and just, like things that I wear, he'll be like, oh, that's this African, what's your name? He asked me so many questions, and I realized, okay, so I decided I take my students to a different country every month.
Nice.
So I just pick a country and we go. Yeah, we find out more. We just find out about the people because, because I remember him saying, oh, you're African. And it took me a while to help him understand that Africa is a continent. It's so many countries. And
Yes.
I know some things about Africa because I'm West African, but I don't know everything about Africa. And I realized, a lot of people don't know. So I take my students to a country every single month.
No,
That's
that
just it.
I love that. That is awesome. And imagine what you're exposing them to, all these different cultures. Because my brother-in-law is from Venezuela, and so it's really interesting for me to see even the differences in our cultures. Of course, there's a lot of similarities, but I think it really helps you make connections with people when you know more about them. So I'm so glad that you have such a great relationship with your students and can do that. We You made me think of, we used to do a holiday when I taught one of the younger grades, the third grade, and we used to do Stinky Cheese Day, and we would travel the world eating cheese, cheeses of the world. And the kids absolutely loved it. And of course, they experienced things that they never would have before, but we also learned a lot about different cultures um, through that just Stinky Cheese Day. I don't know what day of the year. I think it was in the fall that we did that, but we had a lot of fun with that. But you can, like you said, you just plan it every month, but you could tie it around something, tie it to your curriculum, which is awesome. And probably if I was in a classroom now and not in the library, is probably what I would do. Um, is just tie it to my curriculum, because you can get so much more into your curriculum when you're diversifying your subjects and bringing it all together, and also learning about each other and our world and who we are and how we're the same and how we're different. And it's okay.
One of the things my students and I are working on now, it's going to be a long-term project. It's 365 days in the world of Westbrook, because my school is very diverse. And so we're first identifying all the countries and cultures of the school. And we're creating calendars, 365 days in their culture. So it'll cover, famous people's birthdays. It'll cover their holidays and things. So when I say it's a long-term project, yeah, it's going to take us a couple of years to get it all. But as we grow, teachers are using it for what they call it, like warm-ups
Yeah.
and that type of thing. And so the kids just write a quick thing in their journal. Today is, the birthday of, say, Nelson Mandela. What connections, or what do you know about him? What connections? Nothing too heavy, but just we're identifying all the cultures at our school and making sure we literally do have the calendar for every culture that's represented. And then we're trying to figure out how we're going to do it. But as it grows, people use it as they want. So it's taken a while, but they're going to work on it. I teach sixth grade, so we just started it this year. It's something to do when it's like what to do when you're done.
Yeah.
It's like, so if you finish early, start working on the calendar. We've got the list of the cultures. This is where we are up to now. Keep going, do some research. So it may help later on, but right now it's giving them something to do when they're done with whatever activity we're working on.
And how meaningful that is to them. I love that. That is awesome. That is a great idea. And it almost like I don't know, like a yearbook of us as people, not just pictures, but who we are and where we came from. Oh, that is really good. Great ideas. Oh my gosh, these sixth grade teachers and all our age groups are awesome and doing so much already. I'm so glad that you joined us tonight. That I was worried about the whole panel approach, but this has worked out really well with your ideas. Thank you. Jessica, are you getting ideas there?
Kenzie had in the chat, she has put a lot of different Instagram pages that would be good to check out. So y'all can see that there. One page is Books for Diversity, and there's a website there too. A lot of people are commenting that they like the idea of celebrating the seasons, and they're loving Anita's idea as well. See, Kinsey is commenting on what could you do about non-culturally diverse school-wide celebrations. She says, I think if your district or school is doing or celebrating something that is not equitable or inclusive, we as educators need to use our voice to stand up against why these celebrations are not appropriate. If we go along with it because it's building-wide thing, we're just continuing the problem. If it's not inclusive and doesn't consider all cultures or backgrounds, it needs to be stood up against. It should not be part of any type of school, no matter how racially, religiously diverse the student population is.
Well said. Well said. I sort of got out of it this year because of COVID. We were unable to have the celebration like we had it before. So, but I was like, okay, how are we going to handle this next year? So I appreciate that. Was very well said.
Cindy has a question. She says, where do we draw the line between trying to include everyone and respect their beliefs while not doing away with what the majority of your class celebrates? She just doesn't want to do away with one culture celebrations to make sure we don't offend the few that don't celebrate.
So what about just having them share how they do it in each individual person in their classroom? So we've done books on how I celebrate the holidays. We've done some like ebooks and allowed all the students to be included. And then we talked about, well, in our classroom, this is how we're going to celebrate this holiday. And of course, we've included at least the people that were in my classroom. I always try to include them in their little celebrations, whether they have 12 grapes that night. We may, learn more about why and what the belief is behind that, where it came from, how it originated, and those kind of things. That was a fun one that we had recently. I think it was a New Year's tradition from one of the Hispanic countries that our students came from. But those are my thoughts in allowing them a voice and not being overshadowed by just one way to do something. There's a lot of ways to do any celebration. And including this year, we are going to have our pandemic tradition. I don't know if about anybody else, but this was a very different holiday for us because we could not get together due to one of our family members being sick. And it was very weird.
Margaret says we need to change the word celebration. Instead, think about educating and developing understanding across cultures.
Oh, okay. I like that.
Mm-hmm. Susan gave a list of different holidays to think about.
Oh, good.
Mm-hmm.
Can't wait to take, luckily it automatically downloads on my computer. So I'm going to get to check all these out, even though I'm a little nervous to try to open them currently.
One of the things that has come up in my class from my students is that when I used to refer to something as a holiday, they would remind me that it's not a holiday, it's a religious observance, or it's a this or that, because sometimes we call things a holiday and that's not what it is. And so we're very careful in how we define the days or the celebrations and so forth. So some of them aren't truly not celebrations, but part of their religious obligations and things like that. So we make a varied distinction when we're talking about the different days. So that's why we don't necessarily say celebrate, but observe. Observances. Yeah.
Oh, that's very important. Yes. Good.
Yeah, and Shannon said that she likes celebrating, that it doesn't have to be just celebrate a holiday, but celebrate diversity.
Yes. Yes. We, including those discussions, which is why do a lot more social issue things than actual celebrating or observing those types of traditions. Talking about the whys and the hows and the how did it come about? Why was it important? What does it talk to us about or tell us about today or teach us about the past? Those kind of things. Very good. Very intelligent group we have tonight. Because together we're better, right?
Yeah, a lot of great comments and interaction and ideas going on in the chat.
Nice. It is so important. And if you guys have other ways on how to speak to the majority rather than just minority, that is one that has weighed on me a lot, to make sure that no one's being excluded, or you're not making a bigger deal about or making it seem like some person's culture is more important than another person's.
I teach preschool, so I'm a little different than everybody. You guys are way more advanced than I will ever be, but I don't live in a diverse community. We are very, very small town, very tight-knit community. But what we do is ask the parents when we start school if there's any holidays they celebrate, anything, their culture that they would like to share with the class, and then they can come in. And we had somebody from Puerto Rico come in and make us empanadas fresh right in the classroom. They were absolutely delicious. She talked about why they made them, why they meant so much to her. So, but that's really about all we can do, is when people come in, we just ask them to share their culture with us, and we'll celebrate it. Just let us know what we're celebrating and why.
That's fabulous. I love that. Our preschools do, I think, go above and beyond in diversity, because they do the same thing in bringing their parents in. In fact, I think their parents have to do one day a month. That was pre-COVID, but they'd have to come and volunteer and give back. So that's awesome. So you're setting all of that up, and acceptance of each other and who we are, and being aware that some people do things differently. So I think you're equally as important and doing just as much as everyone else.
Lillian says that she has also been showing students videos of how climate change is affecting every country of the world. So, for example, if she's talking about flooding, then she will show flooding in different countries of the world, and that allows her to diversify without really celebrating anything.
Very good. Yes. Working on a New Jersey map recently, and we were looking at something very similar. The scarcity of resources and how it is so not equal in areas. So that's a great idea of bringing in other cultures, and how there's not equality throughout the world, for sure. I think somebody was, one of our preschool teachers actually was talking about, she had gone after one of the hurricanes to an island country and saw people having school in tents. And so that kind of brought to light, and how she was able to bring some of that back to her classroom on the importance of school, and how different it is and can be in different areas. But I think during all this, it shows that we will teach anyway, even here in America, for sure. We'll teach anyway, anyhow we have to make it work for our students, just like other countries. But I thought that was an interesting view after disaster, and how students still got to go to school.
Are there any other comments or questions or ideas to add?
So I'll go ahead and flip to this one just so we. All right, so if if you have any questions or comments or want to know more about Social Studies School Service and their resources, they have a lot of resources, videos, and things for you to help you teach incredibly diversely about all parts of history, the world, maps, all kinds of tools. P. Gothard at socialstudies.com is who you would contact, Pam. If you would love to have a certificate of participation for some PD hours, please email help@socialstudies.com. And if you don't mind, Jessica, would you put that in the chat box for me so that they can just copy and paste that if they want to have that certificate?
Yes, I will. I'm also copying and pasting a link to a form. If you could fill that out for us really quick before you sign out, it's just a quick evaluation. It'll only take just a few seconds. So that is in the chat box as well.
And I want to say thank you so much, everybody, for participating, for commenting, for sharing these great resources and ideas. This is the first type of webinar like this that I have done. So thank you so much. I was worried a little bit it would just be me and Jessica talking to each other. So thank you so much. This wealth of ideas. I have written some down and I'm going to take with me that would work absolutely in my school and be some of those ongoing projects. Great ideas. But thank you all for participating and being with us tonight and being interested in creating a classroom environment that is immersive, diverse, and accepting of all your little lives. I hope you all have a fabulous rest of the year. And I hope 2021 brings us a different view and maybe some new not normals. But thank you guys, everyone, for tonight. I had a great time just talking about this with you. And thank you, Jessica, for hosting.